SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Joe Jifkados,
Darren DeLon, Joe Jifkados.
And our special guest today. And forgive me, folks, I got the hiccups. I just had some surgery. And oh, boy. So Darren will be asking most of the questions today. So
Our special guest today is none other than the chief of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, Chief James Floyd. How are you doing today?
Morning, Shay, everybody. I'm doing well. It's a nice warm day. Usual typical July day, I guess, but things are going well.
Good. Right before the 4th, you got any big plans coming up for you?
If we have any, well, there's some, of course, I'd like to hit one of the grounds this weekend, and I'd like to maybe get with family tomorrow, if all possible, and just go out and see people. That'd be fun.
Good. Chief, we just finished up, 45th annual Mvskoke Creek Nation Festival again, and what were your takes on it?
I thought it was very successful. Again, we were able to get through the festival without any incidents, so, no major injuries or anything like that, and just the typical little disagreements maybe on the softball field or something like that, but that's something that we really put a lot of time and effort in, make sure people are safe, and so we, partnering with the National Weather Service and other law enforcement agencies, and just trying to attract families, and I think we've been successful there because it is like a big family reunion. So getting through the festival and having good attendance and everybody being safe and having a good time, I think it went very well.
Were you able to catch some of them games? Were you able, or whereabouts were you at majority during the festival?
I think I saw part of one game, but that was it. I went what time I did have to just kind of walk around, of course, the different food booths and the dunk tank. I'm not sure how much Mvskoke Youth Council made, but that was a pretty popular place on Saturday afternoon. And then the shows Friday and Saturday evening took up a lot of time. It was sure good to see everybody. So my own family I don't get to see very often were there, so
good.
Just catching up like everybody else.
Chief, a lot of things have been happening, especially in the last couple of months. And one thing I was wanting to bring up was the Oklahoma City Charter. Mm-hmm. Could you give us like a story of events? What began, if you're allowed to talk about that, and then also like what made you have to pull the OKC's charter?
Okay, so the Oklahoma City Mvskoke Association is like any other chartered community, except they're outside of our boundaries. They were housed in a building that the tribe owns, and so the issue really became one of compliance with auditing. And so when we had a year that we didn't have an audit, and then we extended time, and I think in December they sent me a letter, wanted an extension of time. I gave them 90 days, and then we got the information when we couldn't really put together an audit. That's a huge red flag for us. And then so as we began to dig a little deeper, it became apparent that we had significant issues there, such that I had to, issue a proclamation and revoke their charter. And, it's a balance, I guess, for any community. I think I've only done that for 2 others and over the 4 years. And Oklahoma City was the 3rd, unfortunately. So you want to make sure that the citizens can still access the building, still hold events there. At the same time, you've got to go in and look at, what led up to the situation that you had. They were also unique in that the council had loaned them some money for a business or several businesses. And so, those things are still being sorted out. At this time, we have somebody up there 3 days a week to take care of any of the citizen needs, and also the flexibility to bring people down here if we need to for services. And then also making sure that we continue to have the building available for the events that people had paid in advance for. The next step for us is to make sure that they, review their constitution and revise it as needed, have an election again, have new officers in place, and then work with community research and development to get reset so they can be successful, and then I can then put them back into active status again.
Is there a timeline for things like that to happen? I mean, with I'm not saying that they can happen like right away, but like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or into the months and months and months.
Well, under the community charter legislation, they have an election, you give notice, and then you have a committee that will review the Constitution. There's some time limits on that, but we're probably more than 6 months in, like in the fall, and we don't have anything yet. So I'd like to say within 6 months we can turn that around, but I'm not sure. I'm hopeful, but it may take longer than that. I hope it's before the beginning of the calendar year.
When you're saying that the red flags came up on the auditing, did it show? Was there any wrongdoings fiscally? With the monies, was that it, or?
Well, it's the documentation needed to back up expenditures. You've got to have that, and every community knows the rules, how we go about being accountable for the money that's given to them to operate on. And when you have lack of that evidence, then it really gets concerning, because I'm responsible for that. And so at some point you just have to take action. And we felt we were there.
So you say currently there's somebody up there 3 days a week.
We have someone 3 days a week there.
And right now there's no meetings or anything like that because there's no officers.
Right, the officers were kind of summarily dismissed when I did the proclamation, so we don't have officers. With Oklahoma City, it's unique in that they are limited liability corporations under the state of Oklahoma. I think they have 3. So, they have requirements to meet with the state, and so as an LLC, I'm not sure that, they're out of business. They could be operating somewhere else and continue with that. It's just that they won't have access to the tribal funds.
Has any of the community members reached out to you that belong to the Oklahoma City community? And if so, how's their feedback towards, what's been going on?
Well, immediately, some of them were saying, well, what about the building we reserved for events? They contacted me about that. So I think the immediate concern was so much that, was about them already paying, reserving, and everything. So we made sure that we could meet those commitments that had already been made. Others were, in their opinions, glad to see it be done, or it's about time, or why'd you do it? Just different things like that. So it's kind of been all over the place, I guess, with different issues that people have.
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us an update with what's going on with Oklahoma City community. We're going to change course real quick. 2019, it is election year, and one person that's not going to be running for or running in the election is you.
My name won't be on the ballot, that's for sure.
Could you? What I know you made they had a press release about that, about your decision. Was it an overnight decision? Was it a back and forth decision? What made you not want to seek re-election?
It was not an overnight decision, and and I have kind of a fairly large family, and we kind of operate like a democracy. So you get input from different family members, and they were mixed. Some very much supportive, continue to do what you're doing, and others saying, well, we'd like to have some of your time as well, and then with my immediate family, just recognizing things that we really need to be doing as a family that just really, in the last 4 years, have just been kind of put to the side. So it wasn't overnight. It wasn't easy, but in some ways it was fairly straightforward when you really started looking at things within our family that we really wanted to do and spend time with family members, children, and my mom and others that we just haven't had time for. And so we knew that we had to look forward. So in 4 years, if we made the decision to continue to do the job I'm in right now, what could take place that we may regret. And so when you start adding those things up, that, gosh, we don't want to be in a position of regretting not spending time with family. And so that really made it a simple decision that we really need to make sure that if we're going to say families come first, then we got to be able to do that. And so that's what drove the decision.
So with being able to hear everybody's input, with this decision making, in the end, it all just comes down to you. Like whenever you made that decision, like I'm not going to go ahead and put my name on the ballot. Did the realization of that hit the did the realization hit that whenever you saw the press release or anything like that?
What it did for me, I guess I'm more kind of practical in things, is then I knew, okay, now I need to focus or refocus on things that I really need to get completed, because I thought, there's not much time remaining. So you got to make sure, I need to make sure that the things that are important and priorities of the nation, I need to devote all my time on it. So that was like a turning point. Okay, that's done. So now go back to work, and what do you really need to do, and what effort do you need to expend, or which more effort do you need to give? And that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's 6 months and counting. There's some things that really need to be done, and so I better get busy. Busier.
Yeah. With how was it like a shock with friends? I mean, I know you said you just dealt with it with family, but with friends, like seeing that press release, were they kind of like caught off guard, or were they they say, hey, Chief Floyd, you got some explaining to do? Was it anything like that?
Surprise, because we had held that decision pretty close to the vest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of keeping my family kind of private in some ways, and so that's what we did. And so, yeah, there were probably some surprise. I'm not a social media buff, so I don't have any time to be there on social media. So I don't really know. My gauge is not very good in that regard, because I just don't have the time for that, and so I'm not sure what the buzz is on social media.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you have a little bit of time left during your term, and you say you need to get more busy. With getting things done. What are some of the things that you need that are on your to-do list in this short amount of time?
Well, two things that there's a lot. First of all, but in the drivers that we've had of what are the things that are important to us has kind of driven this whole administration. I've had some wonderful cabinet members, and I can't give them enough thanks for everything that they've done. So we've looked at what do we need to do to preserve, what do we need to do to protect, and what do we need to do to develop? Because you constantly got to be moving, and so we're fortunate that in preservation, we've made great strides there. The cultural preservation staff in that department and Interior, they focused a lot on both local and national issues. They have, listed, inventoried more than 250 cemeteries, within the Creek Nation, and so we have reclaimed a number of them, cleaned them up, fenced them, protected them. So that's been a big project for them. Being involved in what they call Section 106 reviews, where there's activity going on that requires cultural preservation to look at, are there any historic or ancestral sites there, or archaeological sites. I've seen that grow from hundreds to where they may have almost 2,000 now that they have to keep track of. So the volume of their work has just expanded greatly, but it's important. And I think that what we've done nationally with Oakmulgee Mounds, getting that legislation passed to expand it by 2,000 acres. Mvskoke Youth Council have an agreement now to go back and have our youth work there in the summers and in the coming years. Those things I just need to make sure they're all complete so that next year rolls around, it's just going to be seamless. These things are ready to go. And so I'll be focusing on that. In developments, we've got several projects that we're working on, and I just need to make sure that, that I can do everything I possibly can to line up the financing of it or the structuring of it, maybe purchase of land, finalizing details of what it's going to be so that, whoever follows me can have it pretty much laid out for them.
Kind of like a smooth transition going in.
That's what I hope, yeah.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
With one of the things that that has been growing is I want to bring up is the reintegration program.
Yes.
Last week, as a matter of fact, they had like a little ribbon cutting ceremony where their old building where they used to be housed at was is now the new welding area. Right. They have some of the students that belong to that welding area with that. I guess they're in an 8-week course. Please explain how what does that mean to you? For seeing reintegration where where it began to how the impact that it's making now.
Right. Well, just in the past 4 years, just going from kind of an outpatient reentry program to one that is 24/7 with people living on campus, filling that out now with a training school. We're doing welding right now that can be expanded to other trades. Where the goal is to help our citizens get back in society and be contributing. And so we don't want them to return. So you look at the recidivism rates and you want to cut that down. We don't want people to go back and be incarcerated. So by assisting them with housing when they come out, and now not only jobs but training, it gives them a skill that they can use. And I think welding's a good start, and they can make good money very quickly. And so I think that's a great deal. So to see that develop, I know you can't be 100% with people. That's just the way things are. I mean, some things are going to happen, and people are going to fall off, and they may be reincarcerated. But I think we've got a pretty good record, and I think this further develops that. I think we've gone probably further than any tribe that I've seen in what we do to help our citizens, and I'm very pleased with what they've done.
Yeah, there was one student down there who I was able to interview, and he said he goes, I never thought I would be a welder. He goes, this is the last thing that would be on my mind, but he just couldn't express nothing but big thanks to the reintegration program for giving him that opportunity. And it was just the excitement that I saw in him because they were in 4 weeks into this 8-week course, and he said he's learning so much, and he's hoping just to make it just to grow bigger and bigger. He goes, I just want to find a job or a position that is going to allow me to grow, where I can learn, and he feels that the reintegration was that step up. With that being said, is it just going to be the trade of welding that was in the talks, or is there going to be other types of trade like carpentry, anything like that? Has that always been in the thoughts of you all, like cabinet members, and also the reintegration program?
We do have plans to expand that into other trades. Right now, we were able to repurpose that building, and so that's a great benefit. We had that opportunity to bring somebody on to teach welding, so that was a natural fit in that building and with the individual that we have. So that launch of that program was fairly straightforward. The others we have other ideas. We want to make sure that we can implement them, get them successful, and so I think we can have other offerings within the year of other programs that people can take advantage of.
You made an announcement, I think it was a few weeks back, if not, it might be last week, before the festivities, about the economic impact. Tell us about that, or tell our audience about the economic impact that the Mvskoke Creek Nation has been making.
Well, the economic impact study, we hadn't issued one before. We partnered with Oklahoma City University, who had done some with other tribes, and then with the other 4 tribes, with the Intertribal Council. And we wanted to make sure that each tribe had one, and that collectively we pull those studies together so that we could, this year, probably within, I think, the next month, we'll have another report that shows collectively all 5 tribes and the impact in eastern Oklahoma, or eastern Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, and nationally. Ours impact within Mvskoke Creek Nation was $866 million in 2017. So that was, they did research into audited reports, looked at financial statements, looked at employment records, and came up with the number of employees that we have directly and indirectly, and that's 8,000 people. That's 2 years ago. So we wanted to make sure we had the initial report, which we released last week, and that we set up the pattern so that we could have it every year. And when you roll that up and begin to display, the magnitude of the how much we spend for employment, which goes directly, paychecks to individuals, how many people, the impact that we have within eastern Oklahoma, you see what we have. 8,000 employees, $866 million, and $300 million a year in salaries being paid out. And then when you look at that nationally with other businesses that we have, it's over $1 billion. So with the new governor, we hope that we can message that to him, that we're an Oklahoma-based business. We're not going to be leaving, through enticement somewhere else. We're going to be here, and that's the wisest choice to invest and support the tribe in our businesses, because it only makes sense. So they will grow and support Oklahoma. So that's kind of the overriding thing. We want to, again, coordinate with the other 4 tribes. Their reports will be coming out soon, and then use that in the off session of the state legislature to meet with individuals, committee chairs, both in the House and the Senate, and educate them about us. So when they go in next year, they'll know, and we'll be foremost on their minds, not an afterthought. Because I've noticed that sometimes they overlook us. And some of them have the position that we're taking resources from them. No, we're giving them resources, and a lot. And when you look at how much we pay in payroll taxes and sales taxes that people pay, or that we may pay on non-restricted land, and it's significant. And so the study goes into details about that.
How long does one study, you might have mentioned this and it might have just slipped my mind, but how long does one study from, you said from OCU, does that take, to be able to give you those numbers, to give you those readings and what the effects it makes here locally and state and also national?
I think this initial report took us about 9 months. I think that, the succeeding years, it should go shorter, because they kind of have down now the format that we'll use in the future. So we hope to, after the close of the 2018 fiscal year, which we've just closed, and get it audited, which should be out by August, then we'll start working with them again for the next report. And I think it will, citizens and the public will see that, we're a growing economy within the nation and our businesses.
With, and recently with all the floods that happened, with all the heavy rainfall, one of the areas that was affected was River Spirit Casino, and it to the point to where it had to be shut down for a little bit. Those numbers that you brought up, the 866 million, was that I guess an effect, or could it have been more if, like, at that time River Spirit Casino wasn't shut down?
Well, in 2017, which we used the audited records as, we're just opening the hotel, and so we were just expanding. So when we look at 2018, it'll be higher, and then this one come out in 2 years. That will then show us the reflection of that. Now, regarding the flooding, if I can speak about that a little bit, we are working directly with FEMA. So we met with FEMA recently, and we had the option of going through the state, but we felt that, and a couple other tribes have gone directly with FEMA before, so looking at their experience and looking at the speed in which we can get money back from claims that we would submit, it was in our best interest to work directly with FEMA. So we are in the process of that now. We've met with them once. They've come down here as well, and several times now. And so we're looking at damage reports and expenses that we had to have to support, the nation and the people during that time. And so we hope that in turn will get us some resources back from FEMA fairly quickly and help us to kind of replenish our funds that we used and during this time, essentially from May 1st to about June 15th to June 22nd, right about there.
Have you, my mind went blank, forgive me, with when you're saying it's the impact from what happened, you said that should come out in about 2 years?
Right. I mean, we will know probably the short-term effect soon because they close financially each month on all our businesses, and so they close at different dates. So by August we'll know the impact that we had, loss of revenue, and the expenses. But in the overall impact picture will be probably 2 years when we do the financial impact, economic impact report for 2019. So, but I think that we were able to. First of all, we were pretty blessed and fortunate that we didn't sustain more damage than we did. We know that for citizens, particularly those around Sapulpa, Wagner County, Mvskoke County, to some extent here in Okmulgee County, we had different patches, I guess, or pockets where they were hit harder than others. And we know that there were people displaced, whether they got flooded or not. Some of them had to pack up and leave because they were in areas that were threatened. So that was disruption, and some may have even lost their jobs because of the the historic flooding that occurred. With River Spirit, we did close on May 22nd because we knew that the level of water and the discharge from Keystone Dam was going to be increasing. So to protect what we had, we did close. We reopened last week. I think I forget the exact day, like the 20th, I believe. And back in business, people are back at work, and so it's that window of time from about the 20th of June, and you go back to May 22nd for the River Spirit. But other parts were impacted with other storms that hit before that hit citizens' homes.
Of course, Mvskoke Creek Nation, it was hit pretty hard by Mother Nature. We got Mvskoke Creek Nation, our emergency management, were they able to help out with these other emergency management, these other counties, and able to provide that relief, maybe help out with the flood situation, rescue, anything like that?
Our emergency management folks, I thought they did an incredible job. We had EMS workers and, people, the Arbor Care folks worked basically around the clock for days on end. And then the water rescue, we worked with Wagner, especially Wagner County was kind of the hub. So in that area, Mvskoke, Wagner County, we worked with them, and we had people there days on end that didn't come home. They stayed there and slept in the fire station or wherever they could find a place. And so, we did thank them, but I'll thank them again. They did an incredible job. They were highly trained. From that, we see there's some other assets, and we have resources where we may be able to get more advanced equipment to help out in the future. You don't want to go through these types of disasters. You just want to have the drills and hopefully avoid these things. But our people stepped in and I think did an incredible job, and so I want to commend them for what they did and what they learned, because it will help us in the future.
Were you able to see some of the areas that was affected by the floods? Were you able to go out?
I was. There's some days where I only got a couple hours of sleep as well. So I was able to go to Coweta, visit with our folks there, be on site in the Wagner area. Sapulpa, went up there the morning after the storm had hit. It was kind of rough getting around because, you know, it hit about 1 o'clock in the morning, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, there's still stuff laying on the roads. And Jinx, you know, Sand Springs, those areas that were hit. And then we just had other pockets. So either myself or Second Chief, we were out and looking around, making sure people were taken care of.
Yeah, we're going to hold on to that topic real quick. I want to come back to that. We're going to take a short break here. I want to give our Principal Chief time to get some over down and catch our breath real quick. So please stay tuned to us. We're going to be coming back with Principal Chief James Floyd here on 106.3 The Brew. Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio on 106.3 FM. This is Darren DeLon. I'm giving Gary Fife a break to if you do hear him, it sounds like a little puppy in the background because of the hiccuping. So it sounds like a little puppy barking. So it's not a puppy. It is Gary Fife. So just want to give y'all that heads up. But we are here speaking with the Mvskoke Creek Nation Principal Chief James Floyd, and he's giving us updates on what's going on with the Oklahoma City Community Charter, also the economic impact that the Mvskoke Creek Nation has on not only here locally, but also Oklahoma and also nationally. And we've talked about his decision on not seeking reelection. So, but before we went to break, we were talking about the flooding and how Mother Nature just beat us down for like the month of May into a little bit of June. And one of the things I was wanting to bring up, Chief Floyd, you brought up that you hardly got any sleep. You were able to look around, see all these areas that was damaged. How did it affect you, personally, seeing those situations? There were some areas you just couldn't even get to because of the road. I remember, I know one area on Old Bixby Road, there was a road to Conjarty Church. That road was impacted, and, it was like a little sinkhole, and, they could not get to church. It was amazing that how, what I thought, Mvskoke Creek Nation opened their arms, not only them, but Twin Hills community opened their arms and let them have their services at the Twin Hills community, So I wanted to ask you how did it affect you personally, not only like mentally and physically, seeing these areas that were affected by the storms.
Well, I guess, the one sign was, as we were kind of coordinating responses to other areas, we had the sirens go off here in Okmulgee one day, and, we had to house in our buildings for probably an hour and a half, as 2 tornadoes came through Okmulgee. So we could just look out the window and you see them coming by, and I think that's when the reality hit a lot of our people, a lot of our staff, because it's hard for them to kind of fathom sometimes what's going on when they can't see it. So whether we had Okemah or Sapulpa or these other things going on, when it's right there and you're one of them who has to seek shelter, it kind of gets your attention. And so it did mine. And so we were safe. We were spared any damage by, other than hail, any damage on the complex grounds. But I think that, that really made it real to everybody. That this, what we've got is hitting everyone. I think one thing that helped a lot, and one thing that we'll follow up on, during that time I met with a congressional members and Senate members and staff and the governor, we need to look at the Arkansas River and the management of that river and the dam as well. So Corps of Engineers follow up, and I know there's some people working on it already. The levees in West Tulsa, which is within the Creek Nation boundaries, those things need to be addressed. I think the river bank stabilization, we need to look at that because we have properties along either side of it, and we need to be able to protect that so it doesn't wash away in the future. And so I'm interested to see, congressionally what they're going to do, and I understand they're going to hold some hearings about that. So we may be involved in that. I hope that we can be, to talk about, make the issue real to them, because they're in Washington, D.C., we're here. Only those who came out to see it firsthand really can see that. And so those of us who experienced it need to tell the story to them and what we need to do in the future to avoid this type of damage.
How quick would that be able to have those meetings with those congressional leaders, or are y'all in talks right now, or will those talks be coming in here pretty quick?
Well, we've had people who briefed some of the committees on the Hill already, but I think what they're going to do is hold hearings, and we'll find out some more about that. Every 2 years, there's what called Water Resource Development bill that comes out, and that really contains the money for Corps of Engineers for special projects, so like the levee system and other things. That's up for renewal, I think, later this year. So if we can get some hearings and get information to congressional members about that, then we may be able to get some type of special funding for us to assist us in protecting our assets along the river. And so Senator Inhofe is one of the key managers of that bill, and so we'll be working with him and his staff pretty closely.
Let's talk about Hickory Ground, Miko. What we've been, these cases and everything and the situation that's going on there, it's been going on for quite a few years. Is there any updates that you could give to the citizens on Hickory Ground and what has been going on, and or what will be going on from us?
Well, let me first of all talk about Hickory Ground and just the tragedy of it, because we just talked about the floods, and since that was a tragedy, but this one occurred, 180 years ago, when we had to leave. We had to leave Alabama and forcibly removed. We still remember that, and so the Hickory Ground in Wetumpka, Alabama, was there. People here knew, that's where we were, and then to see the people that we trusted to keep it secure didn't uphold their responsibilities. I mean, it's just like, another blow to you emotionally, traumatically, and everything else. And so you've got the practical reality that, that bones and remains were unearthed, but you also have the emotional trauma of it. I mean, that lingers today through, 4 or 5 generations later. And we've got to make sure people understand that, that wouldn't be tolerated if it was some other, historical site in a cemetery. I mean, everybody'd be in an uproar. But so we've got to bring that type of uproar attention to Hickory Ground, because that's our history. And, it's hard as the chief to see people suffer emotionally from that, and that you're working on something to try to resolve it, but I don't know, I don't think it's going to be resolved before I leave, and so it bothers me a lot. I'd like to see some settlement there so that our people have some assurance that things are put back, and they're going to be protected, and things will be left alone. We need that assurance, and so unfortunately, we came to the point where we had to legally intervene with the court system with another tribe on that. And so, totally support that. I wish we didn't have to come to that extent, but we did. But the message is pretty strong. We got to protect these sacred sites. That's a sacred site. And we'll do everything that we can to do that.
Recently also another decision or non-decision came to, I think everybody at Mvskoke Media was on was waiting for this. It was a Supreme Court decision about Carpenter versus Murphy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief. Also, they pushed it back, or they're going to wait till the fall to try and, I guess, open arguments again, or hear the case, and before they make their decision. What is when you saw that with the Supreme Court justices making that decision right there to hold off on it? What was going through your mind, and how did that make you feel?
Well, we were hoping for a decision because, and we were hoping for a favorable decision because I think that the facts point that direction for us. The non-decision, we're back to where we were almost a year ago, where we can't talk about the case because we're going to have to re-argue this probably in the fall at the Supreme Court level again, which is a fairly rare occurrence. They don't do this very often. We thought it was rare in December when they asked for additional, answers to questions that they had. So we thought, okay, now they got the answers, we'll have a decision. And then it was a waiting game. To the last day of the Supreme Court, they announced that this will be put on the calendar for the next session and will be re-argued. So personally, I'm optimistic. It's I think an opportunity for us to go back to the court and retell the story and I think that separates some of the myth from the facts here. So we're looking forward to it, and we hope that October, November we'll be back up there again and be before the court and re-argue this. It's difficult in some ways. For us, because we're citizens of the Mvskoke Nation, we're citizens of the state of Oklahoma as well. So at the end of the day, we all have to exist in the same location, almost as two different types of people. But we've done that since 1907, and we've been successful in doing that. So I don't see how people can think that Mvskoke Creek Nation, if the decision was upheld and ruled in our favor, would change that. That's just my opinion, but that's about the extent that I can talk about it. We'll be back up there. We've got some very capable people assisting us, and I feel confident about that.
Can you tell us have you talked to maybe Governor Stitt and his reaction to the decision from the Supreme Court justice?
I've not spoken to Governor Stitt about the decision. He and I had a brief conversation, a month or so ago about that, but again, he or I really couldn't say too much about it because things were pending, and then he has staff that I'm sure working on their position. They know we got staff working on our position, and I think one thing I have noticed is there's respect on both sides. The state respects us, we respect them, and it's almost like going into a match here. Figure out who's going to win on this thing, and we're going to do our best, and I feel very confident about it.
Yeah. Chief, I want to thank you for being on our show today. Being able to talk to us about all these, everything that's going on with the Mvskoke Creek Nation now, and also with your decision on the election, not keeping your name off the ballot. But I think I want to bring up one more thing before I do let you go. Is there anything that's going on in D.C.? Is there anything that you want to give an update on to our citizens about, that's going on up there?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that hasn't really been spoken about too much, but it's something that we have a lot of energy going into, is the Violence Against Women Act, the reauthorization of that. That didn't go through the last Congress. We have an excellent chance of it going through this time. We have some of our Mvskoke Youth Council members who, from Unity or from other groups, NCAI including, they're all trying to put an effort on that. As a nation, we're trying to make our statements on that, and through the authorities we have to uphold the laws right now, I think we're doing everything we possibly can. So that's a big thing. we need to make sure that we have the federal laws so that we can uphold those within our nation. And in this violence, it's unnecessary. And, when it happens, we need to investigate, arrest, and prosecute people. And if that's what it's going to take to turn this thing around, that's what we need to do. So this law is crucial. So Violence Against Women Act reauthorization is very important. I think the 2020 budget, I think, is going okay right now. So we've been monitoring that and have people involved in that, whether it's through the Department of the Interior or HHS, the two big ones that fund governmental services for us. Those seem to be the two main things right now. There are other issues that we're involved in to a lesser extent. Like I mentioned, the Water Resource Development Act, when that comes on the burner, then we'll be ready to go for that as well. So it's not as busy as it was last year at this time, but I know there's some things that are pending that will be introduced later this year, and we got to be ready at that point.
What's next for Chief Floyd after after your term's up? What retirement? Is it?
I don't know what retirement is. I don't think I tried that once, and we'll still be here. Carol and I and our family. We've given a lot, and we will continue. Just not full time. I'll put it that way. We have opportunities within our family members, to do things that they want to do and their dreams, and we want to support them in that. And so we want to have the flexibility to do things that are priorities in our own family. But the tribe is always going to be in the forefront of my thinking every day, and I'll do everything I can to make sure we're successful. I want that. We, as the fourth largest tribe in the United States, we've got to be involved. Whether we just talked about nationally, they need to know that one of the biggest tribes in the United States is making a statement and making their voices heard, and should have an impact on legislation. The state of Oklahoma, we should be doing the same thing with federal agencies. We've been involved. We need to even up our game there. So anything I can do to help, I'll be glad to do it. And otherwise, I think they said they already have a chair for me at the Okmulgee Elderly Nutrition Program, so I'll go over there and have lunch with those folks. And just enjoy being a citizen. I really look forward to that.
During this time that you've been principal chief, do you feel the accomplishments, or do you feel like there's still more that needs to be done?
I've not really had time to reflect on a lot of things and the impact of them. To me, like I said, it's kind of practical. I make a list of things, and you just kind of go down the list and what needs to be done. And there are things remaining to be done. So at some point in the future, then maybe I'll say, we did. I mean, we've done a lot of things. We put land in trust. Things we promised that we would do, I think that we hit upon. More land in trust. We purchased land for the nation. And I think the value of what our holdings have increased. Businesses that may not have been successful, we've turned those around, and that's reflected in the revenue that's coming to the nation. We got a master plan in place that I want to continue to work on, secure more of the financing on that, and get that set up so that we can have new government buildings and other things, the Omniplex, cultural lands for us. And so those things I really look forward to.
Chief Floyd, I want to thank you very much for, taking the time out of your day. I mean, I know, as you said, it's going to be busy for the next couple of months, but, giving us that little bit of time to be able to talk about the impacts the Mvskoke Creek Nation has been making, and, and what you see is going on from now until the end of your term. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Gary, Darren. You guys have been with me, and I've tried to make time as well, and Jared, and so it's, you guys have been great to work with. Anytime you want me to come down, I'll make time to come down, and there's tough questions always to answer, but that's okay. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Awesome. We're going to take another break here on 106.3. Please come back to listen to Mvskoke Radio. We'll be having community announcements, so please stay tuned after this break.
You just terrified me.
No, we'll be fine.
15 minutes left. Wait,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Time goes by quick.
Yeah,
Or not quick enough.
yeah, sometimes. Thank you again.
Oh, thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. No, I'll come. You guys, can we come back down? And I even forgot to talk about the quarterly report we're working on. But
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio. This is Darren DeLon. We just got through talking with Mvskoke Creek Nation Principal Chief James Floyd, but I want to talk to Gary through his hiccups and see, were you able to attend the Creek Nation Festival last week?
Oh, yeah. You know, it was different because we did not have a remote broadcast. So I agree with the chief. It seems smaller, that we had more opportunity to get out and about, but I saw the same kind of smiles I was looking for. The little ones there just having a heck of a time. I saw parents there who were so proud of their kids and were enjoying the time with them, excuse me. And everything seemed to be working as it should be. So,
With, you know, like you said, since we didn't have that remote, you know, last year, of course, it was a 2-hour remote.
oh
you know,
boy, yeah.
which was very, very fun and creative in itself. And, but yeah, it kind of, I mean, even though we wanted to take a break from that, it did feel a little off.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, maybe next year we'll bring it up. But one of the things, one of the many things that I saw at the festival was there was of course, the fast pitch softball. There was a team, they're called Native Elite, and 14 and under, playing with the adults,
Oh.
and handling themselves pretty well. I know, from what I was talking to the coach, they played last year and they did fairly well. And I get their coach wanted to try them again. It's just getting them prepared for, you know, for that other competition. Besides, you know, when they go back to the people their ages, you know, they'll be ready. You know, we were always told, in order to get better, you know, play against better competition. And, you know, they played against, I think the last year's champs were this year's champs. And, you know, it was a pretty good game until, you know, I'm going to say the fourth or fifth inning. Then I think the champs this year, you know, kind of just like, you know, we're able to wear them down. We're able to tire them out. I mean, it was just like it was smarts instead of youth that played. And but it was very, very great to see that they were able to, you know, be able to handle themselves. You know,
Let me ask you this: is there a dynasty? One town or one team?
that would be, I think, the team that I'm talking about that won it last year and this year is, I think they're called the Sundancers, and that's the women's.
Mm.
The men, I haven't got to see one yet. At one time, I remember it was next of kin. There was a team, really good team. A couple of the people that work here at Mvskoke Creek Nation, you know, they're part of that team, and they were a really great team. You would always you would see them Sunday morning. You would see them. You knew those were the teams that were going to be there Sunday morning, and same with the Sundancers. You know, I expect them, especially that team, to be there, you know, for the next couple of years. You know, they're just going to be, if they don't win it, they're going to be close.
Chief, I saw you nodding in agreement there. Do you have a favorite?
Well, the Sundancers, you know, for 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And great job. And I agree. If they stay together, they do three-peat.
What is it about that sport that, that draws our people? I mean, Indians all over. I mean, just they can't get a job, but they can go play softball.
I don't know. It's a physical, mental sport that we seem to love. Even though it's hot and dirty and everything else, it's fun.
It is. It really is a lot of fun. And, honestly, I never, I played baseball in high school. Wasn't great by no means, but I would always love watching fast pitch softball. And, and I always look forward to, the Creek Festival because of that. By no means I was going to go play, but I would enjoy watching it. I saw a lot of my friends, after their baseball careers were done, after they they knew they weren't going to be going anywhere to go, whether it was college or further, they would still play that, and they still have that competitive streak. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy seeing all my friends being able to play that, and now seeing all my friends as kids play that. That's one of the great things. It's like a generational thing, because you'll see a lot of fathers and sons, uncles and nephews, mothers, daughters, and they're playing. They're all playing together, and it's really cool to be able to watch that.
Do we need a World Series?
I would like that. I think there is some. There is some national tournaments, like native fast pitch tournaments. I know some are in. A couple of teams from around here will go to like Vegas, and they'll play. And I'm not sure if it's all native though. That's the thing. I think there's other races that play, but they go. These teams, they go and they represent well. I mean, you always see their, like if it's a 3-day tournament, they're in that. They're going to be in that 3rd day. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that.
I'm always amazed in watching these pictures.
Yeah.
It's like watching a cannon. Boom.
What I always thought of what was amazing too is, like, we see baseball, how they have to pitch, they throw it overhand. And they're going to be sitting out for the next 3 or 4 days, to rest that arm. Not these fast pitch softball players. I mean, they have that, they have to wind it, and they throw it underhand. But next game, they're playing 4 or 5 games in 2 to 3 days. Excuse me. And it's going to be the same pitcher. Sure enough, maybe after that, their arm's going to be jello. But
excuse me, like mine.
Yeah,
right now.
but they're not going to complain. But like you see all these major league pitchers or college pitchers, and they're doing that. They're resting. They get to rest.
Yeah.
Not these guys. I see more determination in just these festival tournaments than I ever see in major leagues. And I enjoy that a lot more than Major League. I enjoy these tournaments and that.
Were you a softball veteran, Chief?
Somewhat. I worked a lot, so I wasn't a consistent one because I had to make money, had to make a living. But I always loved it. I still remember going to some of these tournaments, and you're sitting out there trying to find a shade tree in between games, and lay out, and you can't cool off, and.
What position?
But it's the competitiveness. I mean, you're there to compete.
What position?
I was second base usually,
Second
or outfield.
base?
Yep.
Well, I was always an outfielder too. I loved chasing those suckers.
I was the bench.
The bench,
I did that too. So it's Splinters.
Yeah.
riding the ponies. Okay, where are we here in our show? About a minute and a half.
Yeah, I got time for one announcement. Let me get one out
quick
there.
announcement.
Let's get out a free vegetable and flower seed, MCN Conservation District. That'll be in the Housing Department building in room 220. For more information on that, please contact National Resource Conservation District at 918-549-2609.
Okay, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us this week. Thank you so much, Chief, for being with us here. It's always been a joy to talk to you, man. Appreciate the
It's a
candidness.
pleasure to be invited. I'm glad to come back anytime.
All right, we'll get you on the spot at least once more.
Okay.
Widow Gary Fife saying, You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.